Hello and welcome to everyone listening to the Written in Melanin podcast or watching the Written in Melanin channel. Wherever this day may have found you, I am glad that you are here. I am CM Lockhart and I'm here with LaCase Marie Cousineau, and this is the Written in Melanin podcast, and we aim to bring some melanin to your pages. Today, you guys, we are here with Penelope, and she is the author of Song of Blood and Stone, among many other books, including all of the Earthsinger Chronicles, and we get to talk to her, and we're so freaking excited, I can't even tell you. We just finished the live stream with her non-spoilery interview, so if you haven't read her books, which I'm sorry that you haven't, you can go and watch her interview on the channel before you come here. And just so you know, fair warning, this conversation will be full of spoilers, so proceed at your own risk. You have been warned, okay? That being said, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. If you haven't subscribed to LaCase and Penelope, go ahead and do that. There are links in the description. And let's do this. Ladies, are you ready for this discussion?
Yeah, I love to talk spoilers. I'm super ready.
I don't even want to know where to start. Like, do you want to start with the lore questions, or you want to start like the Jack and Desmond questions, or like the questions I need answers to, or like...
Oh, wow. I don't even know. You want to do lore? We can start there? The world?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with the lore. First of all, and LaCase, I swear I'm going to let you talk. I just can't stop. When I was reading it, and you had all the folklore at the beginning of the chapters about, the different animals, and then like, just the way it connected with how like these were the immediate descendants of the original, I don't want to say gods, but like literally the original gods, and they were just like running around dropping wisdom left and right. And it was connected into a book. So like my question first becomes, how do you even come up with that type of wisdom to incorporate into like legit every chapter of your book, but then also have that wisdom tie into like a greater aspect so that it looks like it actually came all from some book that you're quoting, and then to have those quotes applied to what's happening in the chapter? So I guess it's a 3-part question, but I was so impressed by it, and I was just like, this is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, the epigraphs were really fun. They were originally an idea from an editor and another thing to expand the world, and she referenced Parable of the Sower and also N.K. Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy, and N.K. Jemisin has actually her epigraphs at the end of the chapters. So I was down. I was like, I think that's a great idea. That sounds like fun. How do I do this? So at the end, it was basically, I looked at each chapter and I found themes that were in the chapter. And I was like, okay, well, I want the epigraph to have, even if people don't realize it when they're reading it, I wanted it to have some relation to what was going on the page. And so I just made a list of all the chapters and then ideas and themes and just words that, like word association, what's happening in the chapter. And then I did a lot of research on folklore from around the world because, I was really interested in creating something new that wasn't necessarily based on any one culture, but that was, just a new creation, but to get the feel and like the tone and the way things are worded. So I think my brother actually gave me some books on like Hawaiian mythology and different mythological stories from around the world, and like African mythology, Native American. I did research on all of those things. And then I knew I had these 9 houses and, these masters and mistresses of various animals. So I also charted out what the qualities of each of those animals are.
I would love to see
And so
that.
then I chose, for each chapter, I looked at the list I had and I was like, well, which animal goes with this chapter? And look at the qualities of the animal, and then created some sort of very short, folktale. And a lot of times I'm combining animals because they're interacting with each other. But that's how I went about it. And I would just do a couple a day. Now, when I did this, I was having a surgery in the middle of this. Like I had scheduled this, and they were like, oh, well, after 3 or 4 days, you'll be fine to work on the computer. You can go back to work, just, you'll be lying down. So I was like, oh, well, that's fine. I'll finish half the epigraphs before my surgery. I'll finish the other half after my surgery.
Oh, no.
And I totally like had no idea what it was going to be covering. So I'm hopped up on Oxy, like totally sleepy, propped up at my laptop, like I've got to finish these epigraphs. Because of course I didn't tell my editor that what was happening. I was like, I can do it. I can power through. I don't need more time. I'm going to meet this deadline. And I didn't know that I was going to be drugged out of my mind.
Oh my God.
And like dealing with this. And it was just like the worst idea I ever had. But I did finish it. I finished it on time. I managed to make it through. To this day, I don't know which were written when I was like high on Oxycontin and which were written before my surgery. I mean, fortunately, my brother was here helping. And he would actually like just like talk me through things, and we'd brainstorm, and then I would write it down, and or he would actually do some of the writing, and I was like dictating to him. I don't even know how it happened. It's all a blur. I just know that it was not my finest moment of like decision making, but the creativity shone through the drugs and the pain and all of that.
So. Loosen everything up. Yeah, like loosen up your brain and everything.
I love it. It's like the show must go on. The words will be written.
Exactly. Yeah. I am a professional. Damn it! I'm doing this.
Oh my gosh. That is hilarious. I'm glad you got through it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're okay. Glad the epigraphs are still at it, even though you're not necessarily clear of mind.
Can maybe write while
And if you don't know if you can write while you're on painkillers, you can. I am proof.
It can be done. I want to know, like, what other resources did you use when writing this? Like, you talked about the Hawaiian mythology. Like, were there any other maybe authors you turned to, or?
I did look at the Octavia. Oh, sorry.
No. You go ahead.
I did look at the way that Octavia Butler had done the epigraphs in Parable of the Talents and Parable of the Sower. I always forget which one goes first. And they were all from one book that was in the world. And so that was kind of, I was creating this book that was in the world, and just, like I said, just looking at different, like everything from Aesop's fables to the different folklore of, the different countries. I also pulled a lot from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, and a little bit from the Dhammapada, which I have a version. It's like a Buddhist text. I have a version called the Still Point Dhammapada. So I was looking for wisdom from different cultures, but I also wanted mine to be a little bit off. Like I didn't want it to be straight up good advice. I kind of wanted it to be like, you're reading it and you're like, is that good advice? Like, is that wise? Maybe there's something a little bit different about this advice. And so I wanted to be a little bit like, huh?
I like, speaking of that, like, because we're talking about Breath of Dust and Dawn too. I love how in it Jack points out, like, the Book of Her Reign, maybe we shouldn't take it at face value all the time. Like, maybe we should not take advice from that. It's
literal,
right? And I love how that like ties into the fact that Ula was like, she's powerful, but at the end of the day, like, she was just a woman and who had like a really long lifespan, and like crazy stuff happened too. But it's like she's,
oh my gosh,
like they see her as a goddess, but like she wasn't like a true like quote unquote goddess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love that her advice was kind of questionable. Like every advice you get from somebody is take it with a grain of salt. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with, like, I grew up very religious, and I've gone in and out of it right now. Agnostic. So there's a little bit of like religion, but also like when I was very religious, I still felt that people would sometimes, interpret their scriptures in ways that were questionable. And, I just kind of wanted to have a commentary about that. Like, these words are meant for a thing. And sometimes when you take them too literally, or they could easily be twisted to mean things they weren't intended to mean, and that don't support the faith that you have. So like all of that is kind of in there, like how we think about spirituality and religion and deal with these religious figures and all of that kind of stuff I was kind of dealing with.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people they take things out of context. And anything when taken out of context, can be manipulated to what
Yes.
you want it to be. Because like even this conversation that we're having now, if you take it out of the context that we're having it, it can mean something completely different and not what we intended it to be. People do it all the time, you know.
Absolutely.
It's why the internet can be such a dangerous place, because like literally almost everything on the internet is taken way out of context.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
like I love that you incorporated like touching on that fact, and you did it in a very subtle way, but then you also had Jack do it in a very like concrete, like I'm just going to like point this out to you type of way. And I feel like it was done so well because it's like it's an important point, and if he hadn't realized that he would have never found the solution to the problem that he was trying to conquer. So I love that. But like speaking of Ula, like there was this line in the song Blood and Stone where like Desmonda has just been healed, Ula's awakened, they are about to go deal with the true father because he's on the ground, and everybody's like, oh snap, she just woke up, they really woke the goddess, what's happening? And the Elsirians are like, what? She's black? And the Lagrimar people are like, what? The true father is white? What? I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I loved it.
All this is happening, and Jasminda is like Ula comes up and she's like, thank you, because it took the two of you working together to like release the power because you have the blood. And Jasminda's like, I have the blood. What are you talking about? Yeah. And then Ula does not explain it. She just runs off. And I was just like, wait a second, let's rewind. Because I was like, let's following the lore of this world. The caldera was made between the Alicine blood and the blood of Yillis. So I'm like, did Yillis run off and have kids without Ula? Like, is that what just happens?
So this is only spoilers for Song of Blood and Stone and Breath of Dust and Dawn. And you are asking me for spoilers for other things. So you were just going to have to wait. I apologize. All will be revealed in time.
Oh my God, the face she made. She was like,
I know. I know, I suck. But no, I promise you, like, yes, that is a big part of the series.
Okay.
And what happens and all of those things that you just asked.
Okay. Because I was just I went back and I read the chapters and I was just like, did I miss a clue? Is it here? And I'm like, no, it's not here. I just like there's breadcrumbs, but I'm not getting to the destination just yet. But that said, I love that you laid it out and that you laid clues all the way up. And like, I want to know, I need to know. I would definitely read the books because if nothing, I need to know. Well done. I'm gonna just sit on that for a moment. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we were wondering. No, I was just wondering, like, can we even really trust Ula? Can we trust?
Right. Like we have different theories. Because I think Ula's dangerous. I think she's crazy. I think she's been alive for too long. And,
well, I trust her, but but you never know because things can be twisted. This nobody's totally benevolent.
And she's just a woman, and that's why I'm like a little sketch because I'm like, and the way she went at the end to go talk to Darvin, I was just like, and then the way she's walking around the castle looking at people like.
Is she plotting or is she?
And then she was walking with Silene, and we know Silene is sketch. And I'm just like, the company you keep, bruh.
All right. I mean, yeah, y'all are definitely picking up vibes that I'm trying to put into it. So
that makes me feel good. I'm so there's so many elements. I'm just
people are complicated. People are layered and complicated, and very few people are all good or bad, and so they've got different motivations. They have different wounds, and so trying to create characters that are three-dimensional, that are going to make mistakes and be petty sometimes and be jealous sometimes, and when you have lots and lots of power, what does that look like? And if you've been alive for hundreds of years, how does that add something in the mix? So it's all there.
I just had a thought.
Really want to give it up. Oh, go ahead.
No, because I was just thinking how you showed how the true father, because he's been alive for so long and he's been taking this power for so long, that messed with his mind. And I'm like, that probably did something to Ula to have all that power and then have it taken from her. And not only that, but her ability to interact with the living world and to still be alive for that long. Like she's probably, and they're twins. So, and I feel like a lot of it was like mirroring between the true father and Ula and their decisions and how they tried to live their life. So I'm wondering, is that like another mirroring thing that you're trying to show? Like he's bat crazy and so is she, just in a different way.
I think twins are really interesting, and I've always been kind of fascinated by twins and people who grow up together and share a womb, but are unique, different people. So yeah, there's mirroring happening, and the same stimuli. How do people react to it in different ways, and what goes into that, and then how they're treated by the outside world, and how does that change you too? Things like that I'm always kind of thinking about. So yeah, it's all part of it.
Okay. Okay. Like, is it my turn? I think it's your turn.
Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Is it my turn?
I don't know.
I feel like, yeah. Okay, so I think it's your turn.
Okay, I'll go. Well, I just like am wondering this. Was there a character that you thought about that is still alive, or that you will kill off?
I can't tell you if I will kill him.
I know you can't. But I can trick you.
I will say that, like, everything is on the table, but I'm also committed to my HEAs.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So that's all I can really say. Like, as I talk to my brother a lot about the stories, and he's like my number one critique partner and to bounce things off of, because he's an actor and he's an idea about characters. And he was like, I'm writing book 4. It's the end of the series. He's like, somebody has to die. And I'm like, does somebody have to die? And he's like, somebody has to die. And I'm like, does somebody have to die?
Do they really, though?
Do they really?
Do they really? Like, anything, if it needs to happen, it'll happen. But I also am committed to my HEA, so that's all I'll say.
Yeah. Okay. We'll accept it.
I'll accept that. At least I know that you won't do it lightly. Like, if
not
they
at
have
all.
To die, they
Yeah.
they have to die.
They had to go. It had to happen.
Okay. Something that I wanted to know that I never really quite understood is, like, why did Ula keep Yillis? Is that my saying his name? Yillis?
Yillis, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, why did she keep him at an arm's length? Because, like, at the beginning, it seemed like they were together and they were so in love, but then, like, it didn't happen. And it wasn't that the feelings weren't there, they didn't acknowledge that the feelings were there, and, like, Yillis kept proposing to her, and she kept shooting him down, and I'm like, but why, though? Is that, like, something that's explained, or is, like, can you tell us?
I can tell you. I think that there's a lot of guilt on both sides. So Ula had a lot of guilt about her part in giving her brother her power and starting this whole thing, like creating. But it was actually Yillis too, because he was the one who figured out how to do it. Mm-hmm. So they both have a lot of guilt, and they're both. Yillis is proposing, but he at some point pulls away also. Mm-hmm. So she feels like it's kind of like when you're guilty, you don't feel like you do good things. You don't feel like you deserve happiness, especially while you're in the middle of this turmoil and this war. So I think that she's not accepting because she's like, I have to deal with this. I can't get married in the middle of this war and with all of my guilt. And then at a certain point, Yillis is pulling away too for similar reasons. He feels the guilt that he has. So yeah, it was just sort of their feelings as people and being put in this position where they feel like they're responsible for tearing their society and their whole world apart.
I can see how that could, like, prevent you from getting married.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I created this monster and we have to deal with it, but I'm gonna run off and get married. See you in 2 weeks.
Oh wait, I missed what you said. Sorry.
I was like, they're just gonna run off and be married and be like, yeah, I'll see you in like 2 weeks. Just
right,
we'll deal with the monster that we created. Totally our fault.
Well, yeah, I think it's really cool that I just love the way that you pull in like real world, like real human emotion, because like it's so true that we can block our own, like, borrow a phrase from the aunties, but like block your own blessing, like,
right.
Like, get in the way of something that maybe like who determines who deserves what, who determines what we have to push for. And it's just like really cool to see that even someone who has lived for so long and has all this power still struggles that concept of like.
Yeah.
It definitely hit me. It all hit me, honestly, but I really like that a lot.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, is it my turn again? No, I think it's your turn.
I think it's my turn. Oh, I do want to know about Jasmina's grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
What, or will we see what is going on with him in the
Please
future?
tell me that she goes and she's like, I don't need your help no more.
Shows up with
I
like
got
brown.
Please Tell me she has retentive memory. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted to run for the politician? I'm the queen, okay?
Right, I'm the queen, bitch.
That rolls the block.
Yeah, my dog is sneezing, sorry. Writing book 4 now, and the grandfather is in book 4. I will tell you that.
Okay.
So like, I think of this as like, it's like 4 books, and the novellas are part of this too, but it's one big story. Mm-hmm. And so because of the way that I structured it, there's things that don't pay off till the end. But yeah, we definitely see more of him and the family interaction between Desmond and her grandfather. And her grandmother, comes into play too, because
grandmother's
quite
crazy.
A piece of work, right? Yeah,
grandmother's crazy. Like, when I read that, I was just like, "Yo, bruh, she's still above ground." Once I got better, right? I would have gone ham. Like, you're not doing this no more. You're dangerous.
Right?
We gotta nix this in the bud. No. Yeah. But what I wanted to know was like, what happens to everything once? Well, this will probably be addressed now that I think about it. But like, what happens once, the queen is awoken? Because the whole idea of the sisterhood is you go and you sleep in this place and the queen will talk to you. But the queen is among the land of the living. So if you want to talk to her, like, just go talk to her. You don't have to dream about it. So, like, is that something that's addressed or?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the way it's addressed in book 3, because books 1 and 2 are parallel. So they're happening at the same time.
Okay.
So unfortunately, you have to wait till book 3, but definitely, I will give you a preview. Because so the queen is awakened. So this deity that they've been praying to is now available, like you said, for them to talk to, and that's what's happening. She is at the temples at the very beginning, so it's a tiny spoiler. But yeah, she goes to the temples and she meets with the people, and she feels like that's one of her duties, to minister unto the people now that she is awake and available to that. And they're still there. They're still coming to her for guidance. It's Elsarians and Lagramari now, looking to her for this wisdom and to be this goddess.
I can't wait to read it. I'm so excited.
Oh my god. I hope that she fails a little bit. I mean, not just like.
Well, like, based on what you've seen from her, like, don't you think that it's going to be not so?
I feel like she's going to give like bad advice to the wrong person. They're going to be like, why are y'all doing this? Like, no. Like, her advice is not kosher, man.
Yeah, it's full off. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I wish it were coming out tomorrow. But good time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chelsea.
No, it's your turn. I have to wait.
Oh gosh.
I'm trying to be nice.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, this is just kind of like a broad question that I really wanted to ask. Just like the concept of the veil is so present in the book, like barriers, whether they be cultural, like the culture, the language, power, class. Mm-hmm. It's just like that through line that I kept coming back to. Do you feel like you yourself like are facilitating some barriers being broken with your writing, or is that like something that you're? I don't know. I'm probably not asking this question very well, but I just really wanted to talk to you about that, like the idea, just because I feel like as Black women, there are so many barriers already set up for us.
Right. Yeah.
Break into the writing world. So yeah, I just wanted to like get your thoughts on barriers.
Yeah, I mean, I was writing it like wanting to bring in some of the things that have gone on, or not even wanting to, like just bringing in. Just growing up Black in America. And so that just came in completely naturally. And, I don't know if it's breaking down barriers. I mean, I'm definitely not shying away from writing about them. Because I think sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to write about this because I want, this book to be an escape and I don't want to bring people down and stuff like that. And I still want my book to be an escape, but I think I can do that while I'm still talking about racism and, prejudice and things like that. Xenophobia is going to play a big part in it, and all of that stuff. And then you can still have an adventure and a love story and deal with issues. And being fortunate enough to be picked up by a traditional publisher, so that my book is in Barnes & Noble and it's got this Black woman on the cover. And I made sure that the cover was not going to have was going to have a Black woman on it when I made the deal. Like, they were not going to be able to change the cover. Like, that was super important to me. And And so that in and of itself was, I feel like is breaking a barrier. Like walking into a bookstore and seeing a Black woman in the fantasy section is something that is happening more now, but I definitely remember not very long ago when it was super rare.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And
yeah.
And it's one of those things where like this topic in general I get really passionate about, because it's just like representation is a very real thing, and it's just like it's like you have more authors now because you have like Children of Blood and Bone, and you have the Bells, and you have A Blade So Black, and you have these other books with Black girls on the covers who are doing amazing things. But it's just like you don't stop being a Black girl who believes in magic just because you hit 18 or you hit 19. So the fact that I was able to find your book, not necessarily in the YA section, but just like in the general sci-fi fantasy section, I feel like that is so important, because it's like, again, like I know the characters aren't necessarily like in their 20s. I think Desmonds is 19 and Jack is like what, 21?
He's 22, I believe.
22.
Yeah.
So they're still really young characters, but the things that they're having to deal with don't fall into that YA section. So the fact that your book still falls into that realm of fantasy with a Black girl on the cover, with there's so much world building and so much like elements of magic, but you're also weaving in other things. It's just like, yes, you're touching on heavy topics, which I feel like is necessary, but your book is so much more than let's just talk about racism. Let me just identify this one aspect of, the struggle of being Black in America, and just like, I don't want to say harping on it, but there are lots of books that already do that. There are lots of literature and creative works that show that being Black in America is difficult, and there are areas of it that need to be touched on and need to be improved. But it's just also like there are ways to do it where it's still an escape, it's still fun, it's still it's still a fantasy, it's still entertainment, and I think you do it so well, because it's interwoven and it's a part of the world. It's not something that you threw in as an afterthought, or that's just lightly glanced over, or like, oh, and by the way, Desmond was treated terribly. Like, no, like it's shown from the very beginning. And even when she has all this power, even after she's been acknowledged by their literal goddess, people are still giving her a hard time. And there's no reason for that other than she doesn't look like them. Even though she looks like their goddess, she doesn't look like they do. And I feel like that's a very real thing, because just like I'm getting kind of ranty, and I'll stop. But just like when we had President Obama, it's just like he's literally the most powerful man in America. And like there are people who didn't accept him just because he looked different. And it didn't matter that he had literally he held all the power in, that sense. So, and
I think there's people who even voted for him when they are still racist. Like they still wouldn't, they still cross the street if a Black man was there. But Obama, he's not like them. He's different. There's layers to it. And so I was I liked the irony of, they've got these people, their goddess looks like the people that they hate. What do you do then? What happens now And
the man that you've been fighting for the last 500 years looks like you.
Looks like you. Right, exactly.
That you villainize. Yeah.
So I love how easily, like, there are so many things that slip through the cracks of the story, because like, there's a goddess, and that she's sleeping beneath the castle, and the quote unquote whole story, but just casually it just slipped through the cracks of the time that this is what she looks like, and this is what the true father actually looks like. And it's just like, when you tell the story, the thing that I never understood is like, she's got all this power. Like, you guys know the story of the creation, so it's like, how do you think she was doing this if she didn't have Earthsong? And what the people who have Earthsong look like. So, even putting those two and two together is like kind of like willful blindness to the facts.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just so real. That's what happens. That's how people are,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, like the fact that it's woven in, and we can even have a discussion about it in both like the real world, but also in the world of your book. It's just like, I feel like this shows like how well like your book is written. And I say that because it's just like, it just is. And because, you can read a book and you can love it and still come away from it being like, okay, there is this missing, or there was elements that could have been done better. But it's just like, your book is just so well-rounded, and I feel like it checks off all of the boxes. And I so rarely read books that do that. It's just like, that's why I was so excited and like tripping over my words to talk to you, because it's just like you have this quote on the front that says a masterclass in fantasy world building from Time magazine. And I'm just like, absolutely, like, for sure, because I would be hard pressed to find another book that builds a world so thoroughly that I feel like I could be a part of it without any confusion about how the world works. I'd be hard pressed to find another book that does that. That's fantasy and is trying to do that. So like, kudos to you, ma'am. I truly, when I say I love your book, I'm not gassing you up. I'm not like trying to just stroke your ego. I really just love your book, and I wanted you to know that.
Thank you so much. I mean, it really means a lot.
So
it does. I super appreciate it. Especially as I'm struggling through this last book, but being reminded that people really connected with it, and the story is I mean, it feels great. That's why I do it, and I'm happy to hear that.
It truly hit us, and we really, really appreciate having the book. And I'm looking forward to sharing with more friends, young people. It's something that we needed. Like, we were talking about how as kids, like, there were just so many books that we didn't know we needed. Like, Harry Potter, like, just wasn't enough. We needed, and like, we're expected to see ourselves in non-Black characters so often that, like, when you finally see a Black character, discover water,
Mm-hmm.
finally.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
It does.
And I loved that Jasminda had the type of background that you could connect to. Like, a lot of people could connect to, because like, for me specifically, because like, I come from what people would call like a privileged background, and I recognize that, and I don't have like issue with that. But it's just like, when I go to read books, a lot of times that aspect of the Black culture, the Black experience, isn't acknowledged. And Desmonds doesn't necessarily come from a privileged background, but she comes from a place where like, she's not doing like a bunch of crazy stuff. She's not out here, running with, people where you're like making questionable decisions. Just like, she's really just trying to be a responsible person. And I guess that's the trait that I'm trying to pinpoint when I'm talking in circles around. A lot of times you don't get Black characters who have that sense of responsibility without the severe amount of struggle that comes with being Black in America that has forced them into that. Like, Jasminda has her struggles, and she has the things that have forced her into that, but those struggles aren't necessarily because of the society that she lives in. It's just an unfortunate hap of circumstance that she lost her family, and she's the only one left. Does that make sense? So her maturity shows differently in the book,
right?
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think characters have to have struggle, but it doesn't always have to be the same ones that are stereotypical. I think for Black characters, I think it's definitely good to see a range, and even in fantasy, I mean, not necessarily going to be like on welfare in fantasy, but there's things that are kind of analogous that you can see a lot. So, I mean, I had I grew up upper middle class, and I haven't had certain struggles, and there's definitely been some privileges. And, it's reading and writing. I mean, as much as reading creates empathy, and I think that it does, writing and having to actually get into the heads of every character creates a lot of empathy too. And so trying to put that on the page so that a lot of different kinds of people can relate to the characters is part of the challenge of writing something good. Absolutely.
So, like, thank you so much for talking to us. Like, I mean that. I have like a couple more questions for you, but I just want to say that, like, thank you for talking to us and coming on the podcast, because like,
you're welcome.
I love doing this. Like, I really, really do.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, I love talking to books, reading, and if it's my book, that's great. If it's other books, great too.
Okay. One of the big things that I really kind of wanted to know, let me figure out how to talk again. I wanted to know, like, about Desmonds Family, do we find out what happens to her father and brother? Like, I don't know if it's spoilery. I feel like that was kind of an open end that you left open for a reason. So I'm not asking you to spoil it, but do we kind of find out what happens to them?
Yes. So March 16th, which was yesterday, I released a novella, Hush of which explains exactly that. It takes place 2 years ago, and you find out everything that happened to her father. And
okay,
it is.
Do we have to read that after the second book, or can we? Like,
you can read it anytime. My suggested reading order is after the second book because you meet a character who is a main character in the third book, and some of the. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a little bit cliffhangery, but it's fine. Like, you know, it's no more cliffhangery than the epilogue of Song of Stone.
Okay.
So yeah, you can read it at any point in time and have your questions answered. So I'm really excited about that novella because I love it so much. And sometimes it's hard to talk about the novellas, but they give me a chance to just, like, Breath of Dust and Dawn introduced you to Darwin. And I really wanted to be able to do that because I know that some people would have preferred the extension of Jack and Desmond's story in book 2, but that's not happening until book 3. So getting a chance to meet Darwin. So yeah, in Hush of Storm and Sorrow, which is 2.5, you meet Ty, who is going to be one of the main characters in book 3, as you're learning this whole history of Desmonds Family.
Okay, so kind of a side story. Like, I'm probably going to, like, low-key kind of freak you out, but it's fine because we've been through the conversation. But I read Song of Blood and Stone, and I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And then I saw that you had your third book coming out, and I was like, ooh, I haven't read the second one yet. But then I, like, just read the third book, the synopsis for the third book, and I was just like, oh, and I hadn't finished Song of Blood and Stone yet, and I was just like, oh, okay, should have done that. Now I have to finish it. For sure.
Is it a spoiler? I don't know.
It is. It's like, if you're watching this, I don't know how you made it through this entire video and you're not completely spoiled on the book, but if you have managed to do that because you're that skilled and you haven't read the synopsis for the third book, the synopsis for the third book spoils the plot of the first book. So be careful.
Oh man. Yeah. Like, that sucks. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's fine. But I was just like, but then, like, in my mind, I was like, okay, if the first book is about Jack and Jasmine and the third book is about Jack and Jasmine, the second book is going to be about Jack and Jasmine. And then I read the synopsis for the second book and I was like, wait a second, this is on Jack and Jasmine. Hold up. Pause. But then, like, I read Breath of Dust and Dawn, and I was just like, oh, it makes sense. And that's something else that I wanted to, like, mention. It's just that I really loved how you connected the two stories, because I was just like, if I had tried to jump straight from Song of Blood and Stone to Whispers of Shadow and Flame, I would have been so confused about, like, where is the connection between these two stories. But I feel like Breath of Dust and Dawn perfectly adds that connection, because it gives you sort of a nice stopping point for Jack and Jasminda, but it also gives you a really nice kickoff point for who Darwin is and how he played a role in everything that's happening. Because, like I said earlier, nothing in your book just happens. Like, every character that's introduced has a reason for being there, and they play a larger part in the story. And, like, I love that interconnectedness, and I love how you segued from one story to the next, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think because I didn't intend. I thought it was interesting when I actually first published Whispers of Shadow and Flame. I got the feedback that people were disappointed that it wasn't about Jack and Jasminda, and I personally am a big fan of a different couple per book. And not like one couple over multiple books, just a personal preference. That's how I was writing it. And then I was like, oh, but everybody's not like me. And I didn't anticipate that. So I did feel kind of bad, but they come back. But so book 3 has multiple people in it. There's another love story. You see Jack and Jasmine, and everything just moves forward, pushes forward. So you get a little bit of everybody coming back.
Okay.
I feel like it works because, like, the whole idea of, to me, and I could be wrong, but the whole idea to me for the Earthsinger Chronicles is that it's a whole world and it keeps moving and it doesn't just stop on one person. So it's like, you may want more of Jack and Jasminda, but Jack and Jasminda are just, like, literally trying to adjust to the throne. So, like, let's focus on another couple, because things are still happening, and things were still happening while they were trying to awaken the queen. So the fact that this next story runs parallel, to me, it just reinforces that this is a world and it moves and it runs parallel and time doesn't stop. That's like a really big feeling that you get. Like even within the first book, when you have Ella and Ben interacting at the same time as Jasminda and Jack, it's like time doesn't stop. Life still goes on. Like everything that may seem like a big deal to you, whether it really is or not, like life is still happening in a smaller aspect for somebody else. Because for Ella, like her job and her nephew and her sister are the biggest things that are happening to her. And like, yeah, it grows into a larger conflict, but at the time it's just like she just gets a telegram and that's like huge for her, you know. And she's not with her husband and she doesn't know what's happening and she's got to sneak outside the border, and like those are huge things for her. Even though for, you know, Jack and Jasminda, who can literally go anywhere that they want, and they've got to like climb a mountain in the middle of a snowstorm that's literally trying to kill them. You know, like that's huge for them. And comparatively, it doesn't sound huge, but like it's perspective. And I love that you have that so much throughout your book. And like I said, I could probably like rave about your book for days. I'm pretty sure that, if you put all the times that I've just like sung your praises, it would probably go on for days. And I know my husband is sick of hearing it, because literally I would stop while reading your book and I would just be like this would be me reading and I'd be like, you know what? This is so great. And he'd be like, what is it now? So just like I like sticky noted it and everything. Like
oh wow, that's awesome.
I loved it. And I had like little theories, because I was like, Ula's probably the queen who sleeps. Like I'm gonna just throw that in there. I love to guess, and I love, because like to me it's really great when a book leaves the breadcrumbs that you need to get to the point that they're trying to get you to, but also leave enough so that if you're paying attention, you can like make those guesses as you're reading. And I am ranting. I am going to let LaCase talk and you talk, because this is not the Chelsea show. It is the
well, I think we've kept Miss Penelope for quite a long time.
Yes. And I can run my
like
mouth.
Another hour.
It's
no,
okay.
It's not your fault.
No, it's been super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it has been a blast. Don't want to keep you too much longer. I guess, I don't know, should we maybe start wrapping up? I just wanted to know if there's anything you think your readers should know about the series, about your other series, anything you want to share before we wrap
Well,
up?
if you, I still self-publish, and I have another series, the Eternal Flame series, which is like contemporary paranormal romance. And so if you're one of those people who reads everything, I created a multiverse, essentially. So while Earthsinger Chronicles is a different world than Angelborn, it is in the same multiverse. And for the astute reader, when I think book 3, actually, I don't know, if you read Angelborn, there are like little tiny that will let you know that these things are connected in a way. And by book 3 of Earthsinger Chronicles, if you've read the Angel books, you'll understand that even more. So that's kind of something that I like to layer in there that I might not notice, but if you are one of those people who likes that kind of thing, then it's definitely there.
That's good to know. I wasn't aware, so hopefully everybody got that and we can read all the books. They're all so good. I've enjoyed this immensely. I've like I should have been taking notes, but I guess I can go back and watch. But there's so many good nuggets of information. So I'm so appreciative. Like as someone who loves writing, it's like there's so much that we've been able to learn, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Taking time out of your quarantine.
I know, right?
Okay. All right, that is it for this video, you guys. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to LaCase's channel, subscribe to Penelope's channel, subscribe to everything, and turn on the notifications, because we post and we want you guys to see it. But yeah, that's it. Like for real, no more questions. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, we hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye.